there are areas like Chicago, California, Florida, Texas that are the trendsetters for compensation, right? So I think some of the smaller dealer groups haven't caught on to, hey, where comp really is, because they don't have an expert telling them where comp is, right? So maybe I get a search and the owner of the business is telling me, hey, we'll pay up to $500,000. And I go, well, do you really need to pay up to $500,000, right? I might be able to get you somebody in the little lower range, but hey, are you willing to bend on this? Are you willing to bend on that, right?
Today, I'm thrilled to chat with Steve Adragna, a dealership recruiting expert who's helped fill hundreds of roles in top dealerships across the country. We dive into the biggest dealership hiring trends, demystify employee pay, and discuss the most sought-after roles in automotive right now. Plus, my biggest announcement ever on the podcast. Let's get into it. Steve Adragna on the CDG podcast. Steve, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Good to have you on. Highly anticipated episode. So we are going to dig in today to really everything: dealership, hiring, compensation, some pay package stuff. Try to really demystify this. I had an episode months ago with Brett Morgan, and I think I asked him, it was a question about how he pays general managers.
Sure. And
that episode went very, very viral. And people were telling me like, wow, it's like really refreshing to actually understand, like, see, how dealerships are paying people and to just have more transparency. Needless to say, I know lots of GMs that have reached out to me that they went to apply there afterwards for jobs, but that's not the point. The point I'm trying to make is like that the signal I got from that was like, okay, people want to know, people want to know how, how comps are trending in our industry,
sure,
how positions are, shifting and changing and where people are hiring. And so I just think it's a super juicy topic and I'm excited to dig into it together. But first, there's always surprises on the podcast. So we've been cooking up something together.
Sure.
So I'm really excited to announce that before we even get into the show. So today on this podcast, very special announcement. We are announcing that Steven and I are launching CDG Recruiting. Big deal.
Big deal.
So
big deal.
Yeah. Well, lots to talk about in that, but I'll give a quick little overview of what this even means for anyone listening, right? So if you followed me, you know that I launched a job board for the industry, I don't know, maybe like 6 months ago. The job board has done very well. It's really been a job board to connect, automotive employers and talent in a free forum, right? Where everyone can just come together and just help the industry.
Right.
That's literally it's that simple, like nothing complicated. Now, one of the biggest issues I've had with the job board is that I get lots of people reaching out to me that are, hey, I need a little bit more help, or maybe, I need some more vetting or screening, or I'm looking for like a very high level position and I don't just want inbound, I want outbound, right? It's not perfect, right?
Right.
And so I ran into this issue a couple months back and I put a post on LinkedIn, right? You remember this very well.
Oh yeah. We jumped right on that one.
Let's go, baby. So I put a post on LinkedIn like a couple months back. I said, hey, who are the best automotive recruiters?
Right.
And like overwhelmingly, you were tagged like more than anyone else.
Yeah.
So either you have a very good social team that rigged the system, or you might know what you're doing.
A little bit of both.
Yeah. So we started having conversations, and really that's where the idea came to be. Right. We said, right, we are already helping the industry with the free job board, which is great and it's here to stay. But what if we can grow that and add another layer of not just inbound, right? Inbound is talent coming to the job board, but also outbound, like actually providing a service to the industry that helps dealerships find talent.
Yep.
And so that was really what got all this started and why we're sitting here today.
Well, it's funny because you had made a post about, hey, I never envisioned me being a part-time recruiter, and I had offered you a job at the time, but I think, for what you got going on is a little better than, coming over to my company. But, I think it's a very hot topic right now in the industry is finding top talent. And, with us partnering up, I think not only are we going to be able to expand that reach, but make it 100 times better than the industry has ever seen before.
And I'm super excited about it. It's just an area that I've just been very passionate about, which is why I initially did the job board, with kind of just, hey, let's put it out there and see what happens. I've also experienced it firsthand, like, hiring in the dealership world is very freaking tough, as everyone here knows, or hiring the right talent and stuff. So I just think this is going to be a great supplement for the job board. The job board is going to be more of that inbound and more kind of hands-off experience. And then CDG Recruiting will be more of that outbound and, hands-on, where we kind of vet for you, we screen for you, and, almost like a full service type of ordeal. And then the cherry on top that I found very interesting when we started having conversations about partnering is that you have a database of like 16,000 employees and just dealership talent.
And it's current too. It's very current. So this is a database that, not only that, I took all the contacts I have had in my career, and I've really pieced together a lot of big players and really qualified people in the industry. And I think that with that comes the ability to deliver quickly, right? We have these people and
time to fill,
right?
Which is what everyone always asks, like time to fill. I need this role filled now. I can't wait 30, 60, 90 days and then I lose all this money. So
everything in our industry is, hey, who can get it done? And I talk about it as speed, right? Is if you can deliver fast, you can make a big difference, but you have to get the right people in front of them, in front of dealers, and you have to make sure the candidate, it's a good place for them too. So I know what we're going to build is going to be game changing for the industry.
Yep. And I'm excited about it. So Steven, I think a big part of this episode today, like I said, I want to talk about, kind of demystify a lot of these things for dealers.
Sure.
And I wanted to start with your background, right? How did you get into this? Give us the full story.
Well, so goes back to day one, is always wanting to be in the car business. My family came from the car business. I jumped in it at 18 years old. Actually, if you really track back, 16, but that was part stocking and detailing and everything like that. So the first, I think I turned 18 my senior year in high school, and I started selling cars my senior year in high school. So transitioning from, being a student to selling cars, there was nothing I would rather have done more than being sell cars. So I understood fixed. I went through it. I stock parts. I understand all that, but sales is my passion, right? And that's really what it came down to. Transitioned into an F&I role, sales manager, young GSM, young general manager. And then I found that, there is a major issue in the business of recruiting and retaining top talent, right? So I had those struggles myself, being a young general manager in the business and, needing that extra resource to fill roles, right? And it's also time management. Like, dealers, general managers are very busy, right? So, what set it off for me was, hey, I'm connecting a lot of people all the time. And why don't I, make money off of it? And granted, like, hey, I transitioned, it was another family business. And I had a little segue into recruiting, right? I understood how it worked.
So just understand, you were a GM, but then your family had another family business of recruiting.
Yeah.
Got it.
So
why did you pivot to recruiting?
I pivoted to recruiting mostly because I felt the need, and I wanted to get out of retail. I came through the business. The only thing I've ever done was be in a dealership. And, I told the owner I worked for at the time, because he was worried. He knew that this transition was going on with me. Right. And he was like, Steve, hey, are you leaving? And, and I told him, hey, I don't know where else I would go, John, but I know this is my last job in the car business, in retail, right? In retail. And so I did a lot of soul searching, and I was like, why don't I just get into recruiting, right? There's already a business set up, and, I can segue really nicely. And I already dabbled in it. Like when I'd be in between jobs, I'd, do a little recruiting here and there. Yeah. And so I made the full leap about 8 years ago, and I haven't looked back since. Being a matchmaker in the business, right? I came from one side of the business, being a high level operator, and knowing how a dealer thinks, because I've been around them so long. So I'm able to make that connection with candidates and dealers that some aren't able to make because my ability to make that match is from personal experience, right? So that
makes sense.
That is where it really comes in is, hey, knowing, because our industry is not like any other industry, right? So automotive
it's definitely nuanced. I'll agree with you there.
So I think that
you bring people from the outside, like, hey, I need like an F&I man. They're like, what the hell is F&I?
Right. And that's what and that's what you do struggle with people coming from outside the business is, hey, the roles we fill are very unique, right? Some people think a finance manager is someone in accounting, right?
Yeah.
So, knowing the business and jumping into, hey, personality matters too. I might have an A player on paper, but the dealer and them don't click, right? Don't click. That doesn't make sense, but you know what I mean? So
no, 100%.
And I think that, from that perspective, what we can offer is really unique, right? Is connecting people, matching personalities, not just people's experience, but personalities.
Yeah, culture.
Right?
It's super important. So I want to talk a little bit about, like, let's dig in a little bit at the trends that you're seeing in car business right now, right? COVID was nuts. Dealership employee turnover was at all-time lows, right? People were making boatloads of money, right? So it's not surprising that turnover would be very low. Everyone's super happy. Times have changed. People are getting readjusted to more of a reality. First of all, speaking high level, right? Like, what is the general demand you're seeing out there right now in terms of, employees looking to make a change, like just general movement in the industry?
So everyone's willing to talk right now. And I think it's because compensations have changed, right? And gross profits are trending in a different direction, right? Not so much down, but
when you say everyone's willing to talk because comps have changed, are you saying like comp plans or just like the absolute number?
The absolute number.
So people are making less money, obviously, so they're open to having conversations.
Right. And so what happens in our industry is that the norm changes all the time, but people they don't change with the times, right? So now if you're a general manager and you made $1 million last year, you're probably going to make 600 this year.
Who's making $1 million as a GM? What types of stores are those?
A lot of family-owned businesses, smaller dealer groups, which we see some of the highest comps, believe it or not, come from smaller dealer groups, right?
Makes total sense. And I think also it's like there's high variance. So again, having come from a small dealer group or dealership to having built a much bigger, kind of more systematized auto retailing operation, in the small group, right? Like, we were a lot more variable.
Right.
So from my experience, and I'm sure many people listening can attest to this, but you can make in certain cases, you can make more money with a smaller group,
right? Because
you might be on a more variable plan,
right?
Where your upside is greater, but your downside is greater as well.
Sure.
I've seen from my benchmarking, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say, is that the bigger groups, they have much tighter pay bands.
Much tighter.
And so, you might have a bigger salary component to your plan, and a smaller commission component. So you have more stability, less upside.
Right.
But again, this is, it can all be very different, right? Because you have some big groups that, you might have a lower commission, but suddenly, but their business is just like insanely, they're very busy.
Sure.
And so you end up making more money that way and just, more stability and more volume. So that's my experience. Curious to hear what you think.
Yeah, I think it's two types of people too, right? Some people are really, they'd like to see a bigger return on the money they bring in for the company. And some are very, different in that they want to know what they're going to make. Right. And that's where, you see the trends right now is, the bigger companies is operators tend to make less money than a dealer group that has 5 rooftops.
So I think, to be fair to the bigger dealer groups, right, you might not need to do half the things you have to do at a smaller dealer group. And so you have to wear
many more hats at a smaller dealer group than you do at, an AutoNation, Lithia. And then the comps that's why the comps are different, right? So
talk to us about comps. Like, this is the juicy stuff that people want to understand.
So comps
Let's go through like all the roles in the dealership. Let's just start with like the GM.
Yeah.
Right. Like, what are comp plans?
So comp plans for GMs I'm seeing right now is we're running a search in LA, which is one of the most, expensive places to live.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm running against that, right? So comp in that area is lower than I'm seeing in Ohio, where I can, where I have a general sales manager search where the potential upside is $500,000, right?
Wait, I don't understand. You're saying the comp is lower in LA where cost of living is higher?
Yes.
Why? I don't get that.
I see it a lot in California, mostly. Expenses are higher, rent factors are higher, quite a bit. Gross profits are very similar all over the country, right? If you think about our industry.
So you're saying that if I'm a GM in Ohio or LA is more expensive to live in, and I might make less money?
Yes.
Wow. That's it's counterintuitive.
Not all the time, but a lot of the time, as I struggle a lot with, compensations in California, right? Is attracting talent. It's not always about compensation. It's about, growth, right? But I think compensation, in a lot of areas, because there are areas like Chicago, California, Florida, Texas that are the trendsetters for compensation, right? So I think some of the smaller dealer groups haven't caught on to, where comp really is, because they don't have a expert telling them where comp is, right? So maybe I get a search and the owner of the business is telling me, hey, we'll pay up to $500,000. Mm-hmm. And I go, well, do you really need to pay up to $500,000, right? I might be able to get you somebody in a little lower range, but hey, are you willing to bend on this? Are you willing to bend on that, right? So I think historically, you talk to any car guy or gal, and they're going to tell you that they want to make X amount of dollars, right? And I think that's where our trend is going, is to, maybe closer to the bigger dealer group model where, pay is more consistent, right? There's months where there's, people are making a lot of money. There's months where they're not. And I think that is slowly going away, right?
So you're saying that we're going to like a bit more fixed, a bit less variable as in aggregate?
Yes. So a lot of the time I intake a client and, we dive into compensation, because that's a huge part of, what I do, right? Is, I could have the best job in the world, but if it doesn't pay, I can't attract talent, right? So I think that where we're seeing the trend in that is that, people do want security right now too, right?
That makes sense, yeah.
And
especially as we've gone up and down, like it's been so volatile over the last couple of years.
Right. So, security, being able to reach realistic expectations is, dangling the carrot doesn't work so much right now. People want to walk in knowing what they're going to make. And, I think that comes with, and honestly, comps are all over the place most of the time. But what I find is that, hey, if you can find a dealer group that, wants to invest in you and take you to the next level in your career, you got to weigh comp. You got to say, hey, maybe I'm going to make a little bit less money.
Not the only, yeah.
Yeah. And compensation is, as far as I'm concerned, and I've talked to many lateral industries in recruiting, and we have some of the best compensation
100%
in the world, right? In our business, right? And so I think that, making compensation your one, I get into compensation because I have to, right? But I'd say, hey, it's about connecting people, matchmaking, right?
Yes.
Compensation only lasts for so long, right? I have guys making, and I told you, I have operators making $1 million a year, and they're not happy, right? So I wouldn't.
Why aren't they happy?
Because either one, they're not appreciated, right? They feel like they're not appreciated, which, feelings in our business is a tough thing to have, right? So I think that
there has to be like, older school car guys or gals or whatever listening to this right now and saying like, dude, give me a break. Like, you're making $1 million a year. Like, I'll wipe the floor. Like I'll go, I'll drink the bathroom from the water. Like
no, and I think that's where we've set, the COVID, all that, it's set really. So our memories are so short in this business, right? So we're thinking, and I did it myself, right? So I'd come, off a great year, whether, I was in the retail in 2008, I was at a Honda store when I don't know if you recall, but paint, they couldn't get the paint from Japan or what. So inventory was low. Everybody's making a lot of money. Hondas were selling for MSRP and then cash for clunkers. And we all thought that was, hey, we're back to making a lot of money. Cause I feel like a lot of what we hear about comp, if it's not, is exaggerated, but from people, right? So from candidates, who knows if I don't ask for, I have had a dealer ask me for someone's pay stub, but we don't do that.
Yeah.
But, I'm not sharing, I'm not asking people for their pay stubs, but, I think that, hey, everyone has their expectations and everyone knows what their value is, right? So I think that's where we struggle.
If basically, if you're like a successful GM, right, that maybe really want a partnership path, but you don't have that track where you're at, right? In theory, there's all this money that's looking to come into the business,
right?
That would partner up with you, right? In theory.
So. Yeah. And that takes a unique individual to make that leap too, 100%. Right? So I think from where it's going to where it has been in the past, this is the best time to be in the industry, right? Because there is tons of opportunity. Right.
There's movement.
There's so much movement and there's tons of opportunity. Right. And if you're a big player, as a dealer right now, what I would be doing is I'd be recruiting top talent because it's out there right now. Very, up and comers that have actually proven records. And then don't discount the experienced operator that's been in the business 30 years right now. We hear it a lot. Right now is that I'm getting a lot of inquiries is, hey, I need somebody that has been there, done that. Right. And it ties into, a lot of second generation, third generations are taking over businesses and, times are changing right now. So we need operators that can change with the times.
As they say in tech, you got to bring the gray hair in.
Yes.
You want a team of the gray hair with the second, third generation.
Right. And that was always, even when I was coming up, why did I get the opportunities? Because I'd work 80 hours a week. And, so I think that we're going to see it's going to be a really exciting time to be in the business. So I'm really, really positive and, it's going to be, some people are going to come up in this moment. The stars are going to shine.
One of the craziest things about the Car Dealership Guy platform is our direct access to literally thousands of dealership and automotive employees. So naturally, I often hear this question: CDG, can you use your network to help me fill an open role at my company? Well, now I can. Building on the success of my free industry job board, I'm proud to launch CDG Recruiting, a more hands-on white glove automotive recruiting service. Whether you're looking to fill roles in dealership management, C-suite, F&I, fixed ops, auto tech, SaaS, we take the hassle out of hiring by doing the heavy lifting for you. And here's the best part: we vet and screen thousands of candidates so you don't have to. And with our placement guarantee, hiring through CDG Recruiting is 100% worry-free. Our team has decades of experience and has successfully placed over 1,000 roles in the automotive industry. So if you're ready to find your next rockstar employee, try CDG Recruiting today by visiting cdgrecruiting.com or clicking the link in the show notes below. Again, that's cdgrecruiting.com. So talk to me more. We spoke about GMs, and because I want to get a little bit deeper into the broader kind of hiring trends you're seeing. I want to wrap up the other conversation of what other roles are you seeing right now? Or are you seeing any other roles in dealership with high variance on the comp? And let me tell you where my head is going, right? Like with all this, technology is getting more embedded in the dealership, right? In theory, there's more support. The dealership consolidations rise. It continues to rise.
Right.
It's at record pace in Q1 or Q2. Q1, right? Record number of buy sells in Q1 of this year, which is unbelievable. All that said, to me, is that there's more support for more roles in the industry, meaning, right, like bigger operation, more technology, a bigger support system. You maybe have to do a little bit less, or you can be more focused on your role. That's the broader macro theme that I see. I'm curious to know from you, like, where else are you seeing trends or like big variance in a dealership when it comes to comp or like the type of positions, or are you seeing any of that stuff?
So we're seeing, a lot of fixed, a lot of comp changes in fixed operations. And
why is that?
Well, it's the backbone of the dealership right now, right? Is that, hey, if, so when I kicked off this year, I told everybody that, hey, fix and accounting is going to be the big thing this year. I know it. And I kid you not, it's panned out. GM hiring is going to phase into, the end of the year, but fixed and, bringing that revenue in, that gross profit, and then being able to manage the money coming in and smart and keeping track of everything.
Wow. No, and again, hearing you say it makes total sense, right? Like, as people are relying more on fixed, it's just becoming more of, it's a hotter topic. Not that fixed is ever not important, like, service parts, but it's just more important when your new and used sales are slowing.
Well, it's okay. So technology is a major factor right now. And, and to your question, is technology is a major factor, but you also need the people that you can have all the technology in the world, but if you don't have the right people, that technology doesn't mean anything. Right. So I think that, yes, with all the stuff coming out in especially, let's say AI and everything, I think that I know that people are going to be more crucial right now in the role they're in, right? So if you're not able to execute in fix, if you're not able to execute in sales, then there's really no excuse for it right now, because you have stuff that you and I early on in the business didn't have, right? So to tie that into compensation is, yes, you will get paid a little less, but you are going to have a little less work to do, so to speak, right? So I do hear it all the time. I don't hear as many people that I used to that are working 80-hour work weeks, so I think, going back into accounting and really keeping the money they're making and, growing their business in the economy we're in right now is really crucial. And that
I think the way I'd caveat that is like, just like any industry, like the A players are always going to get paid.
Yeah.
A player comp.
Yep.
Like they're always going to be in the hottest demand. Right. And they're always going to bust their ass. Right. So, I think there's just always caveats to all these things.
Yeah.
But I understand your point. So tell me more about, so you mentioned accounting and fixed.
Yes.
So fixed makes total sense. Accounting, interesting. I can imagine why even the past month or in the past 2 months, because of the CDK outages, that's probably people are like, maybe in desperate need in some cases to bring on more support.
Well, certain stuff shows weakness and vulnerability, right? So like when we went through 2008, we had a lot of cream rise to the top and a lot of people didn't, right? And a lot of mistakes were made. And I think that, accounting being, I've picked up dealer groups in the last 3 months that have never had a corporate controller. And now they want a corporate controller. Right. So we're adding new roles. We're adding new high level roles. Right. So corporate controller is a pretty high level role.
When you say corporate controller, you're referring to the person that manages all the controllers at all the dealerships.
So similar to a CFO, but we use titles very loosely in the business. Right.
At the end of the day, show me what you can do. And
I'd say like, hey, a CFO is maybe somebody is a CPA essentially that really understands some finances. It's all open to interpretation, but corporate controller being, somebody over 6 stores, managing the office managers but there's all sorts of mixes, right? It's like, hey, some accounting people may not have this background that the dealer wants, right? And that's really crucial right now, especially with what, to your reference in mergers and acquisitions, people are looking for people that have been through those, right? Because the dealers are trying to acquire more businesses right now.
Yeah.
And I think
that competency. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're an accounting person and you've never been through one of those, then, it's tough.
Oh yeah. So tell me, you said GMs that hiring for GMs typically picks up later in the year.
Right.
So right now you're extremely busy on fixed and accounting. Why GMs later in the year? Why is that?
Well, it goes down to like every time I have ever seen a change in the industry is normally at the general manager level as at the end of the year. They've got the numbers in, the year's closed out.
Got it. So just like normal cycle of business.
Cycle of business. It's been that way for a while, right? So you see high level rules pick up towards the end of the, third, fourth quarter. And that's historic, right? So inquiries in is historic, right? That's historic. So
yeah, look, from my experience, it was tougher to rock the boat for us as a used car dealer during tax season. Not for any dealer, but especially when you're relying on that, it was always tougher to rock the boat.
Sure.
Stakes were higher, right? Now, September, October, even like late summer, it's a bit easier to do that,
right? Because
that you're not going to be inundated with demand, and it's going to be very, very tough to operate.
No, 100%. I know that it's an industry of change, right?
Yeah.
And if you got to be accustomed to change to be in our industry. And we have I had a dealer use a reference with me the other day. I might say it wrong.
Good,
but they say if the world were to end today, there'd only be, a few people that survive, and it'd be car dealers and car guys. Because they're, he used the reference cocker. I don't know what the exact term was.
People have said that on the podcast before.
Yeah.
And by the way, dealers have said that on the podcast before. I don't view it like a negative connotation. Actually, I get it. Like dealers are like the cockroaches of business. Like they're just very resilient. They don't disappear.
Right. And that's what, I think that everybody has to be like, hey, this industry is always changing, right? Automotive, the way we hire, way we operate, whether we retain talent. I think there's a much bigger focus, especially this year, on retaining talent, but also seeking out more talent.
Yeah.
Right. Not that they're eliminating roles, but
and I want to talk about that. So what's the second toughest role to hire in a dealership? And I'll tell you why I say second.
Yeah.
Because we all know what's the first.
The hot topic. If we had a technician machine.
We can't produce technicians.
If I tell it, even when I get those inquiries for technechicians, I'm like, hey, if I had a technician making machine, I wouldn't even need to call you.
Technicians is like, it's just tough. It's always been tough.
So this is, I'd say finding a really good service manager, because they don't change a lot. Right. Service managers are a lot different than a variable person in their mindset. Right.
Yeah, the fixed people seem to be more like consistent.
Very consistent. and I would say that, I'd say anything fixed is, it's a little more work, right? You call a variable guy and they're like, sure, right away. I didn't even tell you the job. So I think that I'd say fixed, because not only that is that, there's a lot less people that are, that variable is where we think all the excitement is, but fixed is fascinating, side of the business. And I think, the little thing, I was a general manager with no fixed experience, right? Besides detailing cars and being a lot porter. And, you rely on those people so much. And, on the fixed side, it's a different person, right? You have to have a different skill set. So I'd say right now it's fixed,
Yeah. What roles right now are dealers engaging you for most? Like, is it, you mentioned accountants and fixed, or is there any other kind of bump in any other type of role?
There's a lot of unique positions coming out right now, like hybrid roles, whether it's, a marketing person that has digital, a lot of, so that speaks to what, car dealership guy, the media aspect of it is important. Dealers are understanding the importance of finding a person internal that can manage social.
Yeah. We, so you probably saw this. Russ Flip Swips, who's, another great just automotive creator that we're partnered with. He did this, dealership training at Warman Auto Group.
Oh, yeah.
And it was really, really big success, but they also have someone now on staff,
right?
He is just creating content all day. on the phone and, putting it out there and getting great distribution. But the cool thing is they train all their employees to do that.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. To kind of decentralize the content creation. But I just think that it's inevitable. Like, first of all, many dealerships already have rules like this, within.
Yeah.
Many don't, but many do. And
but they may have them, but are they doing it correctly? Right.
It varies like crazy.
Right.
Like I see stuff, and there's some dealerships that are executing so well the in-house content.
Right.
Like, you look at, is it Central Houston Nissan?
Sure.
Central Houston,
yeah,
I think.
They went viral on TikTok.
They went viral. You look at, there's a bunch of others. You can just go on TikTok, right? Dealership, and you'll see a bunch.
Yeah.
The point is there's some that really know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And you built to that. But I think to your point, that's a very interesting kind of insight that dealers are increasingly seeing the value in that.
Right.
And looking to bring more of that content creation in-house and training so that they know what they're doing.
Yeah, no, I had, just to use a real example, is I had a dealer, they were getting ready for a tent sale and offsite sale. And the marketing person wasn't equipped to go after on social. They did the traditional email blasts and all that stuff, mailers, right? It didn't work as well this time because I think a lot of people, are going to TikTok and all the other.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the older school strategies, in my opinion, they still work, right? Like people ask me, like, I even asked this question. I was like, like when you go on a dealer's website, there's like 50 pop-ups. Sure. First of all, terrible customer experience. Don't do that. In the long term, it's not going to benefit you. But in the short term, like the reality is, like, it does convert. Right. Again, I'm not saying like I didn't do that. Like, it's just long term. It's not a good customer experience. But if it does convert, like there's a reason for it, right? You are able to get the consumer's information. So I think that, when you think about these things, like there are some of these things that we laugh at and we're like, they actually work.
Yeah.
So
I came across a product,
but I preface this
that might be so stupid it works.
Yeah. But I preface this like 3 times and say that, it can work. It doesn't mean it will.
Right.
And you should still like ultimately optimize for the best customer experience because that's going to bring that repeat business.
Absolutely.
Even if you get that customer's information that one time and, they end up buying a car, it still doesn't mean it's the right strategy, in my opinion. So
no, and dealers are always looking for, different things, right?
Yeah.
So
why do candidates come to you nowadays? And with the angle I'm coming from, like, do you see that it's mostly like money related now? Is it like my organization isn't growing? Is it my boss?
I've heard
my boss is a jerk. Is it all of the above?
All of the above. I'm hearing less compensation calls, more guidance. So I get a lot of calls where, I did this early on in my recruiting careers. I would talk to people, that are looking for a job, right? And kind of, I get a lot of inquiries. Just, hey, where am I at in the market? Like, hey, is my comp good? Should I stay where I'm at? And I have
makes total sense. People want to kind of benchmark, and you're their source for that,
right? And hey, is there opportunities out there? And what I tell a lot of people is, hey, if just try to stick where you're at, right, and make it work because the grass isn't always greener, but sometimes it is. So and I am a recruiter, but we try to do the best for our clients and candidates. We like to change people's lives in a positive way. And I think that's unique. I don't just place people. I really believe that we change people's lives.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that I think you're in an interesting position because you're this concentration of knowledge.
Sure.
Right. And it's kind of like me where like people send me these scoops and stuff really early on. And then like I'll tweet about it. Right. I'm kind of like the filter mechanism to make sure it's like, as legit as possible before we kind of put it out to the world. We want to make sure, we're putting out the right information. And it's why we get so many scoops. But for you, it's kind of similar in that like you have that knowledge of like what's happening on the ground right now within recruiting.
Yeah.
Right.
No. And that's what I always be. I had a dealer ask me the other day, hey, where's the market at? And I'm like, what do you mean the car market? I don't have no clue. He goes, no, Steve, the recruiting market, because I tend to only talk to speak about stuff I know. Right. And,
it's not a bad strategy.
It is very interesting to think that a dealer asked me, hey, where's the recruiting market right now? What talent's out there? Right. And where's it going? And, that's where, we I can help candidates a lot too. And right is like, hey, career guidance, right? Is hey, stay where you're at. You're doing great. But keep one eye open, right? I had an old car dealer tell me one time is like, he's trying to recruit me. And he said, hey, you always got to keep one eye open, right? Yeah. And it goes on both sides, right? Is, I reach out to dealers that aren't looking for people. And I say, hey, I have some excellent candidates. Let's have a conversation. And they will talk, dealers want to know what talent's out there.
Of course. You always want to know what great talent's out there. And I also think for you, like, you build that trust. So people are reaching out to you, right? You're just giving them free information.
Yeah.
And you're building trust. And when one day an opportunity maybe comes up for them, boom, like now they're in your database and like, hey, FYI, this might be a good fit for you.
Right.
Vice versa with, dealers, they get to know you. Hey, I might have someone good for you.
Right. Well, and then talk about comp real quick again is that, I do get asked, hey, what should we pay for this role? Mm-hmm. Right. So, I keep current with it. I jot down everyone's compensation. So it's real data. All the data I have on compensation is fairly rare. It's real. Yeah. It's real actual data. I could tell you what that person's making.
We could literally build a product out of just the data. That could literally be like a product on its own.
Do you want to know I probably know what the CFO of most of these big auto groups are making. I probably know exactly what they're making.
When I was running Get a Car, my prior company, there's a big VC firm. There's a big VC firm outside of Philadelphia or in Philadelphia that like has this internal database of comp for like all the roles across different stages of funding.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, I need to access that because it's like, you want that knowledge to know,
right.
Like what are people paying for a Series A, a finance VP, whatever.
Right.
Like, so it's super, super valuable. How quickly do you typically fill roles? Like what's an average, or obviously depends by the role.
It depends on the role. Like I had a few where I struggled this year, but to
that's always going to happen.
That it's just timing and depending on what candidate pulls out there for that role. But I'll tell you this is that, for an example, we got a call on a Monday for a search to find him a platform general manager, dealer group in West Virginia. We had 3 people over to him by Wednesday. They flew somebody out on Friday and made him an offer. So, not everything, the stars don't always align that perfectly.
But when they do, they align quickly.
Yeah, but it's all, and that goes back to what I said earlier is that it's not always what's on the resume. It's the fit, the personality fit, and if a dealer is able to, understand that, hey, I may have to pay a little more for this person, but they check every box I have in my mind, then that's, the stars align real quick. So
do you ever reject candidates or dealers from working with you?
Yeah. So
you're like, yeah. Been there, done that.
Well, if you I'm not big into, hey, for one, if I really truly believe, and I believe this, and that I can change not only a dealer's business, but I can change somebody's life, right? But that's a big power, right? If, because at the end of the day, I'm putting them in front and I want to make sure that both parties are good people, right? And that this is going to stick. This is a good relationship that's going to land a lot of, it's my reputation. Exactly. So yes, I have fired clients and I have let's not use the word black, but certain people, if you want to dive into compensation and that's your most important thing within 30 seconds of talking to me, probably not, right? A fit for me and my clients, right? So I do have, so to speak, triggers that, hey, this candidate I'm going to put them off to the side, right? But I believe in matching the people, right? And that's my boast. Like I have a candidate I'm placing right now that I've shopped around a lot, and I finally found him what he considers and the dealer considers his forever home. Right.
I love that.
And that's, that's the most rewarding thing about what I do is that, hey, we're really focused on making the right decision for our clients and candidates.
I love it. Amazing. Amazingly said. So before we wrap up, we talked about comp, we talked about hot roles, trending roles, the changes in the industry. Of course, we talked about CDG recruiting.
Yeah.
So in case you didn't,
stuff.
Yeah, in case you missed that part, we are launching CDG Recruiting to expand the CDG job board, which I've talked about.
The automotive industry has never seen something like this.
Oh, that's music to my ears, but yeah. I'm excited to just make it better. And really, again, the premise behind it is to enable an expanded service where the job board today is really for inbound and kind of hands off on our end. And now it's like, hey, we can do more outbound.
Yeah.
We can actually have a service that's hands on, helping you vet, screen, find, and, sift through thousands of candidates to really, help you land someone quicker.
Right.
Or maybe someone that's just not in the ecosystem. So,
and that's why you use a recruiter, because, not everyone's advertising that they want a job. They want to make a change.
I think the key is to have options.
Yeah.
Right. Like even myself, like I've hired from, just online job boards. I've hired from recruiters. It just depends on the situation, how quickly I need to, if I'm coming up on tax season, maybe I need someone sooner. I mean, you just never know.
Right.
Or maybe you just can't find the right talent. But the point is, like, I'm just excited to have that service.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just to be able to offer that. It's just like a natural fit and extension of what we've already done. So super excited to be doing this together. Any closing thoughts? Like, where is our industry headed to next from a people perspective? As we're coming off the CDK madness. There's the
which I got tons of messages about that from candidates.
Really? Like what?
Just like, hey, we're struggling. No one has said, hey, it's not changing their job. But they're working hard right now, and it was a thing, right? And so I think that, for me is that, I'm seeing a lot of people that are willing to adapt to the changes in the industry. And I'm really excited to see, the next phase of recruiting. And we're really going to revolutionize talent acquisition in the car business. So
I love it.
I'm excited.
So if anyone wants to reach out to you to talk about CDG recruiting, and if you're looking for talent, if you're a candidate, we'll throw the link up in the show notes.
Sure.
So you can just go right in the show notes as well. Of course, cdgrecruiting.com. We got the domain.
Yeah.
So we got that. So it's available there. Steven, really excited about this. You're super interesting just to hear it from you.
Yeah.
We got to do these like on like a quarterly basis or something, just to give us like an update on like the state of the market. How's comp trending?
Right.
It's kind of like the M&A update. This could be like the recruiting update. So very interesting. Steven, thanks for coming on, man. This was awesome.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, brother.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Please give the podcast a rating, consider subscribing to the show, and check the show notes for links to what we talked about. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.